first emerged as the controlling power at the center, and then, by late 2020, at key times found himself alone with the 3 liberals in dissent against the 5 right-wing justices. This upheaval created a headache for someone trying to write a book on the court. What was clear was that the court, more than ever, was showing the political divisions Roberts had been trying to avoid, and was poised to issue rulings outside the American mainstream. In 1978, a year before Kavanaugh would enter Georgetown Preparatory High School in suburban Washington, I arrived for work in Abilene, home, incidentally, to his future wife, Ashley Estes, then just 3 years old. I took up jogging on the track at the high school she'd attend. Texas had for more than a century been a near-solid Democratic state, except in presidential elections. That wild midterm year of Jimmy Carter's presidency would mark the beginning of the National Republican Party's post-Watergate reemergence, heralding its ascendance in the Reagan years and the shift of its historic base from the North to the South. I was from 2 Democratic strongholds in the Midwest, Toledo, Ohio, where I grew up, and Cook County, Illinois, where I finished college. Texas back then was a Democratic bastion of a different sort. Many Democrats I met were more conservative than Republicans I'd known. They often opposed the National Party, yet remained yellow dog Democrats in state and local elections. So loyal, the saying went, that they'd vote for a yellow dog over a Republican. Texas was a 2-party state, my translators joked. Conservative Democrats and liberal Democrats, just like elsewhere in the South. That November, my election night story included the report of a young George W. Bush's defeat for a House seat representing a district west of Abilene, including Midland and Odessa. His loss was expected, yet he did surprisingly well. So did other Republicans across the South, foretelling the wave Reagan would ride 2 years later. Texans in 1978 elected the first Republican governor since Reconstruction, Bill Clements, a rich and bombastic oilman, a sort of precursor of Trump. Among the Democrats who won, taking congressional seats finally vacated by aged New Deal Democrats, was Phil Gramm. The East Texas professor would become a leader among conservative House Democrats known as boll weevils, Southern pests to Congress's Democratic leaders, but allies to Reagan. Like some other boll weevils, Gramm soon would jump to the Republican Party, speeding its rightward, Southern-based makeover. By 1980, when Texas turned on Carter and embraced Reagan, I was in Austin covering politics for a chain of 14 state newspapers. On election night, I'd barely made it to the state's Republican Party headquarters to cover the vote watch there before the networks, shortly after polls closed in the East, projected Reagan would be the winner. Not only that, but the Senate would have a Republican majority for the first time since Dwight Eisenhower's first term. 2 years later, I was covering politics for the Dallas Morning News when Texas Democrats had a last hurrah. They swept every statewide office in the 1982 midterm elections as Democrats nationwide exploited Reagan's weaknesses amid a recession and his cuts to Social Security. The Texas party wouldn't come close to achieving that again. By 2020, it was a perennial loser in statewide races, and Democrats' hopes of a comeback thanks to their Trump-era gains in the big cities and suburbs proved premature. I moved to Washington on New Year's Day, 1984, the election year of Morning in America for Reagan and the Republican Party. Working first for Congressional Quarterly magazine, I soon got to know a maverick Republican congressman from suburban Atlanta, Newt Gingrich. Though he was a junior member of the seemingly permanent House Republican minority, Gingrich saw himself as nothing less than the field marshal for a post-Reagan revolution, even as some allies in the so-called Conservative Opportunity Society confided to me that he was more opportunist than conservative. I joined the Wall Street Journal's Washington bureau in 1990, in time to report how Gingrich, by then the second-ranking House Republican leader, nearly sabotaged that year's bipartisan budget deal between President George H.W. Bush and Congress's leaders because it raised taxes to reduce mounting deficits. Gingrich subsequently predicted to me that Republicans